Hello and welcome back to Qore Conversations. It's Sean and Todd. Todd, how are you?
Awesome, man. I'm so happy to be here on this Friday today.
We are recording on a Friday. This is true. Listen to the audience listening and or viewing the episode. We're back. We're talking again about data, but its relationship to AI. That's your favorite, right? Well, data and AI.
Yeah, I feel one goes hand in hand. Like they go hand in hand. It's like chocolate and vanilla. You can have either, but you really need both together. So
yeah, that's true. I like that. I like it.
Yeah,
well,
maybe that's a good one.
Once again, I think as we kind of want the audience to have an idea of what we want to go after on this episode, the exploration of how transformative data is important, but it's very important relative to all of these AI applications in automotive. There is, I think by this point, people realize that you are literally the leading voice. You are the thought leader in this space who is not afraid to speak into the gray area and the contrarian, because there's a lot of people that, and I'm not going to name names. We don't do that on this podcast, but maybe someday we will in the future. But it's not about that. It's about realizing that you do have to have some people like Todd who will, for just the purpose of speaking honestly and candidly and truthfully about this, so that ultimately the dealers are the ones that we want to see not just take the knowledge, but then execute on it in a way that they don't regret. Like we've done so much of that for so many years. When new things come down the pathway, it usually ends up getting weaponized in some way that makes dealers make decisions that are very, very difficult to unwind. So today we're talking about data, specifically in AI applications, once again, quality, maintenance, enrichment. And I want to start this one, Todd, really around kind of setting the stage of importance. We've talked about it before, but I'm going to give you the floor to say, just explain why data is essential in AI, especially in, obviously, the car business.
Yeah, well, thank you. And it's a great question. Why is data really important in AI? And if you start thinking about it, well, without data, there is no AI. So in our world, you need training data to make AI work. And dealers produce a ton of data. The problem is a lot of it's all siloed, never gets connected. But from an importance standpoint, there is no AI without the data element. And it's not just having data, though. Data has to be formatted in a way that AI can consume it. So it is the critical backbone. So for dealers who are thinking about AI, the first thing they would have to do is get control of their data. At no point can you depend on just third-party tools and data being held in their silos being able to be useful for you. If a dealership says, I really want to be an AI-driven organization to get the benefits of what AI is already beginning to produce and absolutely will be producing over the next 18, 24 months, they have to put data at the center of that. And I think that's the number one thing.
I think a lot of dealers right now, as they're exploring AI, when they're exploring the influence that it will have relative to data, I think they probably have questions around the quality of that data influence in the success of potential AI applications that they're looking at. How do you believe that data quality influences success in these AI applications? Are there things they should be looking for?
Absolutely. Look, the truth saying, and I think we've probably all heard this, Sean, from our days in CRM, DMS, garbage in, garbage out. So if you put a lot of garbage and then try to train an AI model on it, you're going to get some probably garbage outputs. So it's not only critical to put data in one place, but then you want to clean it, hygiene, right? Organize it to be able to be used, maybe even enhance it, put additional data against the data you already have to make it more valuable or to be able to glean deeper intelligence from. So let's say I have Sean Rains from a DMS and CRM perspective. I have Sean Rains, lives at this address, has this email, this phone number, bought this car, was in 6 months ago for an oil change and tire rotation. But maybe we can enhance that data by saying, well, Sean is married, has kids, makes this kind of money, likes outdoor activities, likes animals, seems behaviorally buys a car every 5 to 6 years. Right now, his household income is X, his household debt is Y. And he's behaviorally signaling based on other activities that can be collected that he is currently in market. So that's where data tells an amazing story. And I think any dealer should be looking at a lens that the more quality data we can put into a system, we'll be able to leverage AI to its fullest potential. So
that's a great answer. And I think for a lot of dealers who are trying to just get their arms, let alone their minds around how AI can benefit their operation, I think it's really important for them to remember things like you just gave, which is it is very similar to DMS and CRM in that if what you're putting in is really low quality or shouldn't be there in the first place, then your expectations should be set accordingly. So that garbage in, garbage out is really an easy thing to remember. Like, hey, this is exactly the same thought process when you consider data and AI. Well, so I want to move a little bit to the collection side. There have to be challenges. I'm curious to know from your perspective, what are some of the challenges that dealers face in collecting data, and at the same time, why they should actually take that very seriously?
Wow, that's a good one. So, when you think about collecting data, data is coming into your CRM. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, but data is coming in. There's no filtering, right? There's no guard standing there and saying, I need a last name. You can put, my phone number is, 212-555, 1234. You can do that easily in any system currently in automotive. So as I see this, it's like putting the data in is, step one. And for many dealers, I look at what I really think is you have all these siloed data across systems that hurts dealers, meaning being able to actually understand our consumers. And, you have a glimpse of a consumer in a CRM who's now in maybe an activation mode. You have a glimpse in the DMS as at the transactional mode. Maybe you have a glimpse in web analytics as shopping mode. Maybe you're using some other data source for conquest or looking to find in-market stuff, and they're all separated. Any dealer today should be thinking like, okay, how do I get all that organized? Is it easy? No. Is it worth it? Yes. And I think that begins that journey that I think the smart dealers today go, it's going to be a difficult road heading out west. Yeah. But the gold is out there and we are going to head out and we're going to find it. And I think that the first thing I've realized in talking with dealers, dealer groups, is that mindset that they want to really be able to be in control of their business, which to me starts with being in control of your data. Whether it's siloed or not, yes. Is it the simplest thing to get it out of a lot of these systems? No. Is it in 100 different formats? Yes. Is it clunky? And I'll give you a good example. We looked in one data system. I'm going to say the guilty will remain anonymous of this dealership. There was 297 Luke Skywalkers. And listen, I love Luke, but I thought he had the little Land Cruiser thing. I didn't think he was buying Toyotas. So I come to find out if the one service writer didn't know a name. He just threw him as Luke Skywalker. And there's tons of trash data. So you see those things. But we have already experienced where, okay, we can get all that data out. And now you have to work it through a pretty deep hygiene process. But that's like one step of like 20, because if you think about it, data also decays. So when you look at like, we'll take email addresses just as a simple analogy. So email addresses degrade at 2.5% per month. So that's over 30% a year. So if you have not done anything to your CRM or DMS data in the last year, guaranteed 30+% of all those email addresses are bad. So now let's put this into a practical sense. If you're a dealer and it's, what is it, the 15th, right? We're recording today. And I'm halfway through the month and I'm like, oh crap, I need to sell more cars. So you go down to the BDC or your internet team or whoever and say, hey, we need to send out a email blast. And look, we have some new car incentives and we have some used cars. Let's blast them. Let's blast them, bro. And you go in and let's say the guy punches in. He goes, okay, we have 10,000 people who bought new Toyotas. And you're like, yeah, there's got to be buyers in there. So you write this amazing email. Come on in, best dealership to buy at, been in business for 100 years. We are easy to deal with. We'll get you in and out in a quick amount of time. Painless purchase process. We send out the email with the coupon. And then we wait. And you're like, where are all the people? What's going on? Why is our phone not ringing? And interesting enough, if your delivery rate, meaning your bounce rate, as soon as you send that email campaign out, as soon as you hit a 10% bounce rate, which you're absolutely going to do in every CRM because your data is not hygiened, in every DMS because your data is not hygiened. Once you hit that, the ISP, your internet service provider, throttles all the way down, delivering more. So your 10,000 might realistically be 2,500 or 3,000. And then in your mind, you sent 10,000 and you're like, dude, why did I get 0.5% of people even open it? The problem is all our statistics fail when you don't have good data. And then we're making decisions off of a bad data set. Or I think we talked about before show, or you start weaponizing the data. Meaning inside groups, we'll see data being used to secure budget. Data being used in a certain way to validate current market or thinking or validating my job. So it's interesting. I talked to some groups and I talked to Matt Lasher at Westar, and I love Matt. Matt is a great marketer. And we were talking and we were like, yeah, man, you see a lot of managers inside stores. They've weaponized the data to build a moat of protection for their job. And you start thinking as data is ones and zeros, right? It should be exact, not curated to paint my picture. And look, we can laugh at this because when you think about weaponizing data, I always go to internet leads. And you, I believe, have visited lots of stores like I've visited during my lifetime in auto. And how many stores have you gone into? And have you ever seen the anomaly where it's like we have a 62% closing ratio of internet leads? Yeah. You've seen this, right?
Yeah.
I wish you had some of the internet guys on too, because everyone, we've all seen this, or they're at 34%. Let's be more realistic. The 60 something, I've seen it, but I've seen as high as 70%. And I'm like, there is no way. Right. But let's say they're showing 27% close rate. And I'm like, okay, so let's dig into this. So first, let's look at all these leads. And I was like, well, what about these leads? Oh, if they don't respond to the first email, we don't count them. Or, oh, they didn't have a phone number. We don't count those. Or, oh, no, that comes from, what is it? The classified ad service. We don't count those leads because they're, or we don't count General Motors hand raiser leads because because nobody ever.
That's from the state fair.
Yeah, they're from the state fair. So we can't count those. And then you have this curation, and now you've weaponized the data to create a story that you want to tell and believe. You've created a bias, and now you're convincing other members of the organization that that's correct. You are already you are going down the slippity slide with super Dawn grease at the highest rate of speed into a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I don't know, I look at this and man, I'm like, no. Data, it has to be all data. You just want it normalized. Like a good example, we just did a group. They are like, we have a data lake, and both Martin and I were like, oh, because a lot of data lakes we go to, man, the data going into them is not complete. It's all over the place. We find a lot of data going into them is only designed to write reports on the other side. So you get a lot of just strange data, but they're like, we got 1.6 million customers, guys. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. So once we go through this process, 600,000 real people. They're like, what? They're like, no, we have more. I was like, you don't have more. Meaning we have matched this to people who have credit file. These are living people. And by the way, 2% of the people in your database were dead. You're still marketing their email addresses. You're still marketing direct mail to these people. They're dead. And they're like, no. I was like, look, deceased. I gave them the deceased list and said, here you go. And I said, look, this happens all the time because life keeps moving all the time. And there's no like, that's why I always feel like, I just talked to a dealer the other day. He's like, I just want hygiene of data. I want to take it out of my DMS, clean it, put it back. Will you do that? I said, no. And I said, no, I believe for a very valid reason. It's because I'm setting you up to fail because the second you put it back in, it still starts to deteriorate. And yeah, you're good for a day or a month or whatever it is, but you're going to get erosion. And it's inefficient and it's expensive to just clean data once and try to repurpose. And I just wrote a post about this. I think it's today's actually, where I said, it's like washing clothes in dirty water.
Yeah.
It's like, but you're like, it's water, it's got soap in it, but it's dirty. And you're letting more dirt just accumulate inside of it. And this is why our entire concept is like, look, you got to get the data in something else that you own as a dealer that's protected. And it's in what we call like an evergreen state. It's like, hey, every month, look at email addresses because that's critical. Every, let's say 90 days, let's look at like propensity because it changes kind of on a wave. Let's look at, do they still own that car? Did these leads buy from competitors? Stop calling them and emailing them and understand why they bought from competitors. Maybe compare it to all your pencil versus the outcomes of the transactions. Because you can see transactions outside your organization and you can see the financial structure. So I think there's a lot that dealers can do with data. They just, but look, I think it still comes down to block and tackle. Get all your data in one place. It's painful. It's worth it. And it's the only way you leverage AI.
It's very interesting. I mean, he shared several examples. I mean, my gears were spinning. It's interesting that the digital age brought us, obviously, an explosion of data and from all types of areas that we never really even thought about until we had it, from digital marketing data. It's the same thing like you're talking about, people wanting to weaponize or basically tell a story, set up a narrative, if they will, that, it's a bias to basically get people to either agree or to believe in something or to buy something. And, there used to be digital marketing firms that would basically ask the dealer, like, well, what's most important to you? Like the amount of traffic that we can send to your website. And if that's the most important thing, and the dealer's like, yeah, like we need website traffic really, really bad. Okay, great. That's going to be one of the things that they make as a note that they're going to report to you every single month. And they're going to chase that metric, not the conversion of that traffic, right? Not the stuff that really matters downstream from beyond they visited the site. And it goes like that on and on and on through paid search campaigns. Hey, what's the click-through rate? Is that the most important metric to you? The click-through rate, or the cost per click, or how many impressions you served? As soon as you get people to fixate on a thing that some person who's been either self-appointed or the industry thinks is the leader on something, people, this will relate to you. Like, think of it as the surfer. Like, you're just waiting. Like, you read the sets until you know the one you want to ride. Like, and there are people that will do that, and they'll tell those stories, unfortunately, leading dealers to ask of you what one of these examples did, where it's like, hey, well, we come in, rip it out, clean it all up, and put it back in. It's like, so do you just clean your house like fucking once a year? That's all you do? Like, the point of all of it now, and I know you do too. We kid about stuff. We have a lot of fun with this, but we're only doing all these things because we care about the industry, including dealers, and really everything that's going on here. You're not really helping a dealer when, after all of these years of just technology data stacked upon more data, and so many that don't even understand how to utilize it, we've ushered out so many buzzwords, like the big data and attribution modeling and all these things. And yet we have not moved forward. It's kind of like, people talk about, like, hey, let's do more cancer research. Like, well, clearly we're making a lot of money off of cancer research and treatment, but we have more cancer than ever before, which is true. We also still have tons of dealers, maybe more than ever before, that have all of these different points of data. And now we have to think about, hey, what's its relationship to AI? And some of them still want a quick fix, or something that they believe from something they learned from somebody that didn't know what they were talking about 2 years ago or 7 years ago, or maybe right now today. And I'm glad that you're kind of you're not a bullhorn. You're much more, I think, kinder than that. So I won't say it that way. But you certainly are that person kind of on the street corner saying, hey, these are all really important things to be considering as you think about your data and what you want to do going forward. And you've made points even on previous episodes where, if you think about doing it right now, and how much that begins to give you a stake in the ground of differentiation between all of your competitors, whether they're same brand, different brand, same category, different category, but you're getting some distance between them and doing it right. I wanted to, I guess, say all that to also then say, for the dealers that tune into this and are listening to this, it is critically important that as you start to make some of these changes, that they're ones that are, they're maybe not going to be the easiest change, but so worth it. To your point a minute ago, you're not going to regret making changes like this, but it might take a little bit more elbow grease than you realize. Just know that it's worth it. And by the way, if you don't do these things right now, it's going to be far more painful a year, 5 years from today. Yeah. Right. So I wanted to
get the advantage. You'll never get the advantage of AI. And it's just gone. And if you're a dealer, depending on your vendor to give you AI, or, to produce some AI functionality for your dealership, wrong thinking. It just clearly the dealer needs to control his data and start training his AI child to understand his business. It's the only way we move from reactive to proactive and prescriptive. And there's a very deep thing inside here where I think every dealer thinks in 30 days cycles, right? 30 days, 30 days, 30 days, right? I'm halfway through the month, right? That's all. I'm not thinking, oh my God, I got 2.5 months left before the year, right? No. I am thinking like boom, 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 or whatever, a month and a half till I'm done.
Black Friday's almost here.
Yeah, Black Friday is coming. So cyber sale. And I think I look at this and I'm like, okay, AI is very good at looking at data, large chunks of data. The more data it looks at, the more accurate it is. Hence, what is an LLM? An LLM is predicting the next character, the next word that you are going to type. And that's what it's doing. It's amazingly good at that. And when you feed it enough training data, it's very good at predicting what will happen next. So, but if you don't feed it the data because you don't have the data, because all your data is held in these vendors, you never benefit. You never get the Glengarry AI. You do not get, it stays on the shelf. You never get the AI. You will get the AI only provided by the vendor who's controlling it. It's not built on your store, meaning it's training on all stores, which is far more generic than the individuality of your store and how your store behaves, the type of people who buy from you, the PMA you're in, the types of cars, the brands you sell. Do you sell more trucks than cars in used? All those small little things, AI will explode and help you start to see. I absolutely, within the next 6 to 12 months, we will peer slightly around a corner. I will start to see 30, 60 days of what my sales will be, what I'll gross, how much service work I'll get. AI will absolutely predict within a very small, finite rule of error, the accuracy of that. And then it'll start doing larger prediction farther out. Today, think about it. We're going to end on the 31st, right, of November. And now I'm going to look backwards and I'm going to go, what did I do? And now I'm trying to make decisions to correct my mistakes, or I have too much of this inventory. I need to reprice this. I'm looking backwards when AI is the only thing that's going to give you a glimpse into your future. And I think it's such a critical thing that goes back to the first thing you asked. It all and only rests with data.
Is it too early for best practices or maybe even tools to have emerged that will help dealerships with the gathering of the right type of high quality relevant data? Is that too early, or are there some things that are starting to kind of pop up?
Yeah, I feel like organizing all your data, there's definitely tools that help organize it, put it into what I call like AI ready mode. Because you really want all your data on a graph. You have to vector data. You have to do a lot of things slightly different than just having like a tabled CSV is not designed, for training. Yes, you could load it onto an LLM, but it's not where you're going to get the most bang for the buck. So I think dealers are going to have to partner, and this is where I am just, and look, I'm just not the lover of automotive CDPs. And I say it in the nicest way. I just think that they're marketing companies. And that's good. Listen, dealers love marketing companies. And dealers want one throat to choke. And somehow in our industry, data and marketing have come together in this weird interconnected way. Because if we go to any other industry, they're different. And if we look outside auto, it's church and it's state. In auto, somehow the church and state are the same thing. And the problem with this, to me, you choose a current automotive CDP. Take your pick. Let's say they have some AI stuff. They have all your data. They're maximizing your marketing.
They have a cool name.
11 months from now, another CDP has some other widget marketing tool. This guy, your current vendor, doesn't. So you leave. Well, guess what happens? All that data is gone too. Even if you get a copy of it, now it's in a format that the new guy probably is going to take forever to ingest, if he can ingest it, if he tags things that way. And most of the time, they'll just won't do it. So for a dealer, this is why a dealer has to be at the center of his data. And listen, I'm going to die on the mound telling dealers in this crusade that you have to own and be at the center of your data, and not a vendor marketing company. You want to be the middleware between your data and the marketing company. And you don't want it to go from DMS right to the vendor. And then like you want to become the center. And then you want to use AI to train your data on the nuances of your store, the behavior, even to like a granular level of, think about it, like it's not very hard to train an agent, AI like agent, to go, wow, Sean got 47 F-150 leads this year. He closed 3. Todd got 51 F-150 leads, closed 32. Where should F-150 leads go? Not to Sean.
No, I'm getting fired.
Well, you may be better at selling other things. The real
Right.
reality is, look, I think AI helps us identify strengths and weaknesses really fast in the data. And then we can make better decisions. So look, I may drive an F-150. I have a deep affinity. You drive an electric car and you're trying to sell F-150s. You don't speak truck, dude. You don't speak redneck, even though you're from Texas. So you might speak a little redneck. But the real reality is like, yep, just poquito. So I look at it as like, hey, we have affinities. We all do. We have passions. Data just, and AI instantly goes, I know who is doing what and how effectively. So I see AI right now in our business, right, being used for what I call the low-hanging fruit, right? It's like marketing spend or marketing optimization, right, is where we see the most kind of usage right now. But the deeper thing is, if dealers could get all their data in there, including employee data, right? Who works, when, how efficient are they? All this data can be pumped into the dealer's like data warehouse, right? And not saying data warehouse, that's structured data. It can take in all the unstructured and structured data, but it formulates it into a way that AI can leverage. At that moment, when you have this running, you start thinking about operational efficiency then. So, I see a 3-step process just in AI in general. AI is going to live as a co-pilot for us. It's going to work alongside humans. It's going to help humans do what they're already trying to do, and it's going to make them effective. Think of AI as the exoskeleton, like to be able to go pick up 1,000 pounds, right? You've seen the kind of military apparatus, like Alien movie, where she's like lifting up the heavy thing. It's got the pinchers and all that, right? So co-pilot. Then you're going to see the beginning of autonomous agents. So when we do things like sell a car, selling a car is a series of small steps. It's not one step. It's a series of micro steps. Agents are going to start replacing pieces of those steps. It won't replace all of the process. It's going to create functionality across that process and do pieces of it. And it's going to then shrink the transaction time, because autonomous agents are doing some and humans are still doing others. And then at a period in the future, the person just kind of evaporates from that piece or that process, because the AI agent will understand it enough. It does now not need the human to be the bridge between certain functionality. This is a very and it works with us because we're linear thinkers, not exponential thinking. And I think it's something that we can get behind, because thinking for a dealership's annual payroll is probably about $5.5 million on average. if I can make your store 10% more efficient by using AI, just that's $500,600K to your bottom line.
In some cases, it might end up being more than a 10% improvement. I mean,
I say this at the most basic, right? The real reality,
yeah.
I would say I could see a realistic 60+% efficiency increase.
When you think about what the digital age brought us, lots of great things, but also more complexity into an industry in a short period of time than it's ever seen, ever, right? Exploding with a trajectory that's so fast that I get it. That's why I have a lot of sympathy for, the folks that are still in retail that have been in it for a long, long time, because it's like, gosh, there's so much to handle. But I've always been one of those people, I know you think this way too, is if you could just actually build processes, even if they need to be nimble processes that you tweak as you need, right? Maybe it needs to be tweaked every month. Maybe it's twice a year. Maybe it's only once a year. But for all the dealers that are still just kind of freewheeling the way they've always freewheeled, and the process is, it's okay. But if you have a superstar salesperson that doesn't want to work the process, doesn't want to use the CRM the way you want them to, but they sell more cars than anybody, so that tail can wag the dog. You're not helping anybody ultimately. And now we're actually not imagining, we are in the era where dealerships will be able to build flexible processes that the humans won't buck the system. They won't cherry pick their way into like, I'll just take care of myself, but not really think about the whole dealership. It's what you were just saying. And that is going to have, I can't wait till we get real numbers on how much that positively changes. I think there's a lot of upside there in retail. I think there's more things actually to be really excited about in the future than I hear a lot of people talk about. It's why I love doing these episodes with you, because you're talking about the kinds of things that I think dealers should be like, how do I learn more about what Todd Smith's doing? What's QoreAI doing? How are you guys approaching the market? Because it is so practical. It's not elementary by any stretch, but it is not like you're talking about rocket science in a way that people won't be able to approach it at all. It is completely doable, and the timing couldn't be better. I want to switch into some things that you've talked about before. Need for evergreen data, keeping information current. You mentioned some things here that I want to ask you about, because there is an impact of when data breaks down and degrades. You mentioned at the top of the episodes a little bit, you were talking about email decay. That certainly happens in B2C. That happens in B2B marketing. It might even be bigger percentages of how much the breakdown happens on a monthly basis. But I don't think people talk about that quite a bit as much as they should. And so, question for you: you mentioned that email is degraded about, I think you said about 2.5% per month, up to 3%. Can you give an explanation a little bit of the impact of that on dealers, of why the data update should be happening regularly?
Yeah, to me, it's you want as close. I mean, monthly is kind of the cadence for some data. Like email addresses are monthly. I would look at like addresses, home addresses, quarterly. Checking on do they still own the vehicle, quarterly, or at least twice a year. Nothing worse than like I'm still getting emails and direct mail pieces from Mercedes, which I sold my last CLS in 2016. And I'm like, what? Why do they still market like I own it? And it's bizarre to me that nobody's cleaning their data. So people move, right? So those are things you like to check quarterly. And there's a host of little things in there. Phone numbers stay pretty consistent, but still need to be checked. And to me, every time like we come in contact with our customers, it's a good time, things get audited there as well, but not as effectively. Because think about it this way: if you come in, you buy a car, you come in for service, right? I don't ask to update your home address.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll put you in as a whole separate person. Todd Lear Smith, Todd L. Smith, Todd Smith. And it's not uncommon that there's multiple, right? Because they don't have a identity graph verification process up front in any of these systems. So that's why it's super important for the when the dealer has and owns this data, that it's constantly like, 96% sure that's the same Todd. Like, and you can build AI and modeling to easily do that and go, okay, identity graph, this is this person. Or, this is interesting. This person was connected to this car, but this is a lady who lives at that same address. Spouse or kid car, like it's household now. So AI is really good at spotting like random forest, like making those pattern matches and correlations. Humans are just not nearly as fast or efficient at doing that. So I think for dealers, again, harping on the value proposition, get the data in one spot, get your arms around owning it, get everything streamed in and organized, and put it into a structure and format that you can begin to leverage AI to learn about your customers. Like, okay, I think that the beginning of equity mining sounds really smart. And what I mean by that is, and all the tools today still do this, right? It's like, oh, this loan is coming due, like it's going to be paid off in 3 months. Let's call that guy and get him to buy another car. But what happens if that person takes 5-year notes and on average buys cars every 7 years? Now you're going to jam him with a bunch of marketing material that he's going to ignore. You're going to train him to ignore your marketing because you're not putting your head up to look around and go, oh, I've now made a correlation. Yeah, he's going to pay off this thing, but we should start marketing him in year 6 with 6 years, 9 months from now, or because that's when we know he's going to cycle, in most likely based on the last 3 transactions. Or maybe there's a little chaos in there, but that's why AI exists. It's good to say, oh, here's a safety ground. Go in this section. Because a lot of times dealers right now, I think, man, they just throw a wave, my surfing analogy. They throw the wave of marketing spend and say, hit them all. The buyer's in there somewhere. And they're right. But the problem with doing that, you may get some of those buyers. You're also training a vast majority, 97% of your audience, to start to ignore you or put you in spam, put you on red. You're done.
Yeah.
And this is where you're overspending currently in every dealer I've seen is absolutely overspending their marketing. And it's weird because it's like Linus or whoever had the little blanket in Snoopy. I think it was Linus, right? Or was Linus the dirty one? I forget.
No, that was Pigpen.
Pigpen was the dirty one. Yeah, Linus had the blanket.
Linus had the blanket. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Dude, it's been a long. My kid's 14 now. It's going back. So with Linus, with that safety blanket, dealers are constantly like, no, we got to market to everybody. I'm like, but all these people aren't in market. Yeah, but they might buy. You don't know. I was like, actually, with data, we kind of do know now. We can see based on behavior, because this device is one of the most amazing things. And just because they visited your website doesn't make them a buyer. Just because they visited cars.com does not make them a buyer. There's hundreds and hundreds of signals that are all being weighed and measured to then go, okay, look, AI's like this guy. And to bring back to the previous conversation when I was talking about that we got down to the 600,000 records. Out of the 600,000, fascinating enough, we said 9,874 were in market. Cool. Okay. Now, as a good company, we're like, hey, these are your Glengarry. Like, these guys are in market right now. Our modeling says these guys are in market. So the auto group, like any good auto group, we hand them this, and the marketing director goes on vacation. So they do nothing. Which, now, in all transparency, I was very upset. But I also then reconditioned my brain to say, wow, this is a very good control group for us to look at. So we said, these 9,000 are market. They don't do anything with it except normal business. Marketing guy is on vacation, drinking pina coladas and doing all this stuff. He comes back 2 weeks later, still doesn't do nothing. At week 3, I go back in and because we take all the data and we put it on like an LLM, so I can just query. Okay, I was like, okay, based on these, how many of these customers bought? And it was crazy, Sean. 2,000 in 3 weeks, 2,110 of the 9,874 bought cars from the group. So
wow.
Yeah, so it's whatever, it's 21 or 20.5% bought. And I was like, I'm like, I smell a good meal being cooked here. And I'm about to run it again, which I don't have the data. Otherwise, I give it to you, where I think at the 6-week mark, my belief is they're going to hit about 30 to 32% will buy from them. I think they're going to have a defection rate of 60-some% defects. And then we're going to track that to go, because we have the data. They bought from a competitor. Did they buy the same brand, or did they swap brand? And did they swap brand that you also had as the group, where we knew that they most likely were going to buy from this brand, and you should have marketed to them. But again, you were on vacation, chose not to. They, bought of a competitive cross brand. So I think, again, that data intelligence shows you can determine if people are in market. That's validated. I think that AI is only going to make that tighter and more accurate through just a short period of time, where we'll know, Sean is going to buy, like, in weeks. Like, we'll see it in the data, like the Matrix. We're going to be like, him, her, buying.
You mentioned it a few minutes back, the predictive capabilities. We have been in the descriptive world for so long of like, we're going to describe what could happen, but it's mostly somebody's hypothesis, like, so we think this, like, it's that's describing it is one thing. Prescribing, even just the story that you're just sharing right now, is emerging literally. I mean, you're watching it unfold in real time. That's another reason to be like super excited. All of the things that, like, not everything, but a lot of the dreams that dealers have had for decades of like, I wish I could know this. I mean, you're starting to talk about things where the day is going to come where I know I've got my marketing work. And 50% of my marketing works. I just don't know which 50% works. I'm one of those people that believes all marketing works. So even if it's not selling you a car or generating a lead or making your brand bigger or whatever, it's still telling you, okay, well, nobody likes that. But what you're sharing is the future of how those things, you are going to be able to get even better at predicting these things, and not just, out of this large number where we know we're going to probably end up with this number of real opportunities. And from that number, once you market to them, hopefully before the pina colada vacation, but once you market to them, we know that you're going to get a take rate in this range, and you're going to have a defection rate in this range. You're talking about things that really matter to dealers. Obviously, how many vehicles are we going to sell? But you're also giving them some insights into things that are really important in terms of, well, are we going to have retention loss for whatever. Some of these people going to be moving to places where we won't have them as service business, and we wouldn't consider them to be somebody who's going to buy 6 cars from us. Or there's just so much of that that's exciting. I do want to talk about a couple of things before we get too close to the end. One around data enrichment. There's obviously all this dealership data.
Yep.
Curious to know if you I know you have thoughts on additional data sources that enrich and enhance the understanding of the customer.
Yeah.
Give me some of your thoughts on that. Are there some things that you think are kind of can't miss for dealers?
Yeah, look, I think there's tons of auxiliary, I call it data, that surrounds the dealer data. That can do everything from taking all your customers and putting them in cohorts. So, hey, I know these customers are like-minded, similar, or these customers share like hundreds of attributes. So okay, they're going to most likely buy these cars. They have this level of affordability. All that type of data is available today. Marketplace data, knowing, hey, these are the, what cars average selling for, coupled that with demand. So being able to see and cross those things in data models. So I look at a few things like, okay, we're entering a time where we could take the dealer's data. We understand the inventory the dealer has. We understand with enhanced auxiliary data, hey, these customers likely will buy these cars. So this type of information can help match cars I have to customers in market, cars I probably need, I should be buying, to customers in market more effectively. Because right now, how do dealers buy cars? I get trade-ins. I take anything I can get, but they are sourcing cars. But how do you know what cars to source? How do you know what you should pay for those cars based on I think intelligence is going to open up new windows of opportunity for dealers to connect cars to people more succinctly. Right now, dealers buy cars and then they go hunting for the people. So, and they spend a lot of money hunting for people, right? Average $700 based on NADA.
Yeah.
So what happens if you can create better alignment to, hey, I need these cars, or, hey, I have some of these cars already with customers I have new customers looking, let's pull some of these customers who are in market and do matching. This is where data at scale, the big data you called, dude, it's so good at that. And we are already having lots of fun and interesting data correlations, I would say, in our own work at QoreAI. And even to I'm going to break it down to super simple ones. I think they're simple, but I have found many groups struggle with, which is they buy at one store, let's say a Honda store, and they service at a sister Honda store. Now, for the typical dealer, the data in the first store where they bought, they are showing as a service defector, right? They've never serviced there. Yet the other store, they're as a service quality customer, but they've never bought there. So you have one store marketing them cheap service specials where they're now taking and using them in the other store. So they're eroding store two's customer pay RO value because this store thinks they're a service defector. We see this. It's crazy. And then you're like, oh, but we can see it in their data. And they're like, stop sending cheap coupons to this customer. And what we realize is, oh, this customer lives close to this store, but they work close to that store.
Interesting.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
All of that. So just a couple things. The allocation consideration is huge. I won't name any names because it might make some dealers that sell these brands, feel bad, but they'll know as soon as I say, if you happen to be one of the brands that has 200 or 300 day market day supply going on a bunch of your models, the manufacturers, instead of saying something that they would construe as me being, harsh towards them, I'll just say it this way. They should be opening their arms really, really wide. And I'm sure that many of them are, I hope they are, in looking for how quality data, the right data, the things that we're talking about on this episode, then the proper usage of these AI applications being able to help them align things like, yeah, we're not going to be sending you another 50 of this particular product that is not moving. And
Right.
by the way, for whatever reason, you and your little town and your little city have a really hard time moving those. So instead of giving you more that are all going to have birthdays pretty soon, let's use this data to actually plug in a way that we haven't seen before, which is almost surprising that it hasn't gotten significantly better. But
yeah, I think they're trying. Look, I feel that OEMs, and again, I don't probably talk to enough OEMs as I should, that I think ambition would always be put the right vehicles in the market that is going to move those vehicles. And
yeah,
it's hard from the sense that, an OEM is a national and, they're chugging out cars at an alarming rate. And then what's happening is, and think of it this way, and in a good way to look at this, if a manufacturer makes cars and puts it in the markets and then has to subvert that by incentives and rebates, it has failed the marketplace process, because now I'm having to pay to sell those cars in those markets. And
yep.
I think AI will absolutely right that ship. And look, COVID did a good job of it, right? Because manufacturer got shrunk down, and then there were no incentives for a long period of time, and demand outstripped supply dramatically, and it allowed prices to rise, and dealers got fat. Everyone was happy. Now we're collapsing back into reality. Manufacturers have done what they said they wouldn't. We're going to produce more cars because of maybe union agreements and contracts and all these things that have to happen. But there is algorithms to be built that will be far more accurate, saying this marketplace needs these cars, this marketplace needs those models. And now we're still wrong. We still going to do incentives. But my thinking is an OEM should be looking at this as their 12, 18, 24-month plan. How do I keep putting cars in the market while reducing my subventive spend? Like, how do I reduce incentive, rebate money? Because that should be a whole model. Like, if I was hired by an OEM, that is literally all we would be looking at is, okay, let's look at these national markets for this product, and saying how many buyers are in market in all the big metro market, all the markets. And now inventory should be moving to those markets at a pace that demand is there. And I think with AI, you can do that. And there's nothing else you could do to get you there. And I feel like everyone has tried to do the data, but unfortunately, they're looking in the past to make predictive choices or predictive decisions, and it hasn't worked. Hence, rebates and incentives are creeping back up because supply is outpacing demand in markets. And once you move a car to a market, you can't unmove it to the market.
Yeah.
It's too costly.
Yeah.
So you're better to use data to start to build predictive modelings for localized demand. The problem is, you need to do that at scale. And again, this is what data and AI is literally built for. The problem is you have archaic data systems. They have to give that data to companies like us that we can then put it on a graph, vectorize it, turn it into AI usable. And then I think dealers will be happy OEMs will be happy, customers will be happy. You get the trifecta, right, of performance across all the parties. Yeah, that's where we have to go.
I love that. If I were an OEM, you would never do this. Well, if you were smart, you would. Well, I guess it would depend on how much money they want to give you. But if I were an OEM, I would be trying to get you and your new company to be exclusive with me. I would want a corner. I'd want,
but you think about it.
But right now, it's wide open for dealers. Like they could jump in on this, which is good. But
but look, for some sense, but the person who's buying a Land Rover isn't buying a Honda Accord. Like in most cases, right? It's just there's very different buyers for different products.
Yeah.
Your F-150
Subaru buyer isn't buying a Silverado,
right? Like, come on. So, like, exclusivity is actually worthless in a time like this. But I think building unique algorithms and leveraging AI and building it for brands that they have, it's learning for them is incredibly valuable. And the same for a dealer. Like, look, two competing dealers. I'll give you another very interesting piece in data. And again, I feel like every month when we do these, I come back with some learnings. So we looked across this other group, and propensity to buy, when a consumer would hit like 800, 850, 900, dude, they're buying. Like, we know now. Statistically, they're a market. So you take Honda, Toyota, Chevy, Ford, a lot of behavior in there. And then I saw this data over here, and it was Land Rover. And Land Rover, it was like 550. And I'm like, what? Why is the propensity models broken? And I go back to our CTO and all the guys, our engineers. I'm like, dude, what's up? Like, it's 850, all the brands. They're like, no. People who buy this car, look at the cohorts they are. Super high income, paying cash. They don't go through the same process of all those buy signals. Some of these people are walking in and be like, it's Friday. Hey, honey, here's a new Land Rover for you. I just bought it. Oh, thank you, honey. Like, there was I didn't go look at 14 other SUVs and compare them. I literally just went in and said, yeah, I'm buying it. And once you start understanding that, you have to lean that and put the weights into those models. And so I think for us, it's been fascinating to see data paint the picture in front of you. And then AI like fills it in. Like, so for us, I feel like data gives you the outline sketch. AI adds all the vibrance, the colors, the shading, the depth, and the detailed intelligence that we just were not able to do by creating pivot tables, cross table reports. Like, that just wasn't viable.
Yeah, you do come back with new learnings on every single episode, and I'm glad that I get to be the host of your podcast because I get to learn as well. And I mean, our little business plays with lots of different AI, in kind of different realm, but there is so much crossover that it's nice to hear your voice of leadership in this area, because again, I think every episode you're dropping things that I think, not rocket science, also not elementary school. It's all doable. It's all important. And the last thing I just want to ask you to comment on before we close this episode down is really, why do you think it's important? And I've asked you this before, but why is it important that now is the time for dealers to start building these data strategies and these AI strategies versus later?
Yeah. Okay. So we can look at this, and hopefully my answer is very clear, that there are many dealers who look at AI as if it's a SaaS product, and they are sitting, waiting, thinking that when the AI is perfected, I will jump in. And when you start at a wrong point, everything past that becomes a mistake. And I'll do it to flying. So when you're flying, and if you're off 1 degree, it's 92 feet per mile that you're flying. So if you're flying 100 miles, you're 92 feet times 100. It's a lot. You're overshooting runways. So little mistake over long time, incorrectable disaster. And when you look at AI as it's a SaaS tool, you're already in the mistake. So I look at this as AI is a river. It's a constantly moving thing. And if you don't jump in, you wait. Your competitor who jumps in today, his AI is gaining data, training data, it's learning, it's improving. You're going to jump in and you're going to have to cover the same length of river he already covered. The problem is he has already covered it, which means he's already operating at more efficiency. You will not catch him in the river because the river flows at the same speed. And even if you put paddles in, you're still not going to catch him because AI is one of these things that it takes time to learn, to train, to improve. And your experience with AI will be different than a competitor's in the sense of training volume, of learnings, and how much data you can put into your, cloud. And I think there is no other time than right now to be involved with data and building that data strategy and leveraging and beginning to leverage the power of AI. But it begins by organizing data, getting all your data streaming in and put into a format that AI can be used against it. And I think the idea of looking at it again as it's a SaaS, it's a product, you already made the mistake. And it's the same idea we thought about the internet. We thought about the internet as a thing. And I still say this, Sean, all the time. I need to go get on the internet. And my kid looks at me like I'm a freaking idiot. He's like, get on the internet? What are you talking about? It's like, dude, it's on the TV. It's right here in my hand. It's on this iPad. Dude, it's literally, you're always on it. Where do you get on it? It's like a subway station in my mind because that's how we learn. And we're now taking that same mentality and saying, oh, the AI, it's like AI is going to be pervasive through everything we touch. Everything. There's nothing that won't have AI components and processes going on inside of it. So waiting is crazy. And I'm going to leave you with this. You'll love this. And let me grab it because I think it's pretty funny for our conversation here. So sorry, disappearing into the...
Might even get a little show and tell. Todd is rummaging through his treasure chest.
My cabinet.
There we go.
I wrote this manual, and back here, in 1997. Hold on. You're going to love this, dude.
Arrow, baby.
Look at Todd with more hair, and a handsome Todd with goatee.
Wow.
So I wrote this in 1997, and it was automotive retailing. Look, on the internet.
Yes.
And it's a perception. And dude, you'll laugh, dude. This was all about. Let me get So I had like new customer learn how to sell a new generation of customers that use the internet as a tool against the automotive dealer, websites, online services, how to use autoresponders, email newsletters, competition, how to drive traffic. That means get on Ask Jeeves and Yahoo. Reducing.
There was no Google. Google at that point.
This was awesome, dude. So I wrote this whole giant manual, man. And I sold a ton of them. But that was in 97. And I looked though, and I you learn a lesson.
No Google,
right?
no Facebook, no like.
Dude, there was no Google, there was no Facebook, there was nothing. There was no
MySpace.
YouTube. Like, there was none of this. So
Yep.
back in '97, it was Ask Jeeves, it was Alta Vista, it was Yahoo, which you had to pay $200 to get into the directory.
Lycos, Hotbot.
Yeah. Oh man, there was Hotmail, right? I think Hotmail had come out. So I look at it and I think we have to change our frame. And this is the most important thing. We have to change our frame and the realization of what AI is and how it's going to impact us. And it begins with data. And dealers have to get control of their data. And I will leave you with one extra ounce of this, which is I don't want us to see us repeat what happened from '97 through the 2000s, where we spun up a series of siloed applications to do things on the internet. Because I'm already seeing us do it today, where we have AI bot on the website. We have an AI email tool. We have an AI phone process. And the problem is they're pulling from all different data reservoirs. They're all being trained different, which means they're going to deliver completely different experiences for the consumer. And we're doing nothing more than confusing the end consumer. Versus the dealer owns all the data in one thing, connect these tools to a service, the data that the dealer owns.
Excellent. Great place to park this episode. I will say to the audience, our industry just has been evolving faster in the past 20 years since the dawn of the internet, but the last couple of years we've hit another gear, and these are the things that we talk about right now on Qore Conversations. It's really critical. It really is critical that you embrace what you probably consider to be really advanced technology if you want to stay ahead of the curve, if you want to make sure that you're in the river flowing now versus trying to catch up to the people that you might compete with. So for the listeners, I always say this: make sure that you jump onto LinkedIn. If you're not already following and connected with Todd, make sure you do that, because he supplements what happens on these podcast episodes with a lot of material, articles and pieces that he posts there. And I don't think there's anybody, yeah, sure, I'm biased and I'm a little selfish in this. There is no one else. I'm also somebody who doesn't lie into the industry for my own benefit. There isn't anyone else who's going to be the candid kind of truth teller around this that you're going to find than Todd. So make sure you go get connected with him on LinkedIn. Go check out QoreAI.com and find out what his company. He really never even selfishly just dishes about what he's doing with his cool company on the podcast, but probably something you want to check out so you can get even more information. Thanks for everybody for joining us. We always appreciate it. And we'll see you again right here on the Qore Conversations podcast.